I will never forget that night when my life changed forever. Clara's house hall was illuminated by old lamps hung from the ceiling, and the table, covered with a white linen tablecloth, seemed out of a postcard. Bohemia glass glasses, silver-covered hand, painted porcelain dishes. The smell of the roasted lamb with rosemary and wine filled the air, mixed with the aroma of the manchego cheeses who had served as entree. I was there, sitting next to Clara, with a suit that had cost me months a job, trying to fit into a world that was not mine. My heart was beating hard, but I repeated that the only thing that mattered was her. Clara looked at me sweetly, as if her green eyes wanted to convey to me, "I'm with you, whatever happens." That look was my shield, my refuge in the midst of so many hostile looks. Clara's family talked about businesses, trips to Paris and New York, of investments in the stock market. I smiled with education, but inside I felt alien, an intruder in that table where everyone seemed to belong to an elite that I would never reach. And although I tried to keep calm, deep down I knew that acceptance would never come. It was then that my mother-in-law, with that sharp voice that had always made me feel small, got up and said out loud, "Let's go for my daughter. She deserves the best, although I still don't know if she will find him in this commitment." The glasses were suspended in the air. I felt a chill going through my back. I tried to hide, but they all turned their heads towards me. She continued, nailing her dark eyes, loaded with contempt. "Do you really think this man deserves my daughter?" Not even half of what our family expected. There was a thick, uncomfortable silence. The sound of the cutlery ceased suddenly. I was frozen with the wine in my hand, without knowing what to say. I tried to articulate an answer, something that defended my honor. "With all due respect, ma'am, I love her daughter and—" But he interrupted me immediately with a sarcastic laugh that tear the atmosphere. "Love doesn't pay the invoices, Alejandro. My daughter deserves a stable future. No, a carpenter who barely arrives at the end of the month." The words pierced me as daggers. The heat rose me to the face. I felt that everyone present watched me, evaluating every gesture, each breath. Some looked down uncomfortable. Others whispered with each other, as if they had already expected this moment. Clara, my love, squeezed my hand under the table, trying to give me strength. His lips approached my ear. "Give her, please." But how to ignore something like that? I was being stripped of my dignity in front of everyone. Each laugh contained, every look of judgment was a blow that sank me more and more. And in the midst of that awkward silence, I made a silent decision. I was not going to allow me to destroy me. Not that night, never. What they did not know, what nobody imagined, is that this humiliation would not be the end. It would be the beginning of a silent war, a war where every word, every lie, and every betrayal would lead me to discover secrets capable of changing everything. My name is Alejandro Garcia. I am 30-8 years old, and I was born in a small town in Andalusia, where the olive trees extended to the horizon, and the air in summer smelled dry and sweat. My childhood was not easy. My father worked as a mason under the scorching sun, and my mother cleaned houses of wealthy families. Since childhood, I knew that, for me, nothing would be given. With just 16, I went to work in a carpentry workshop. There I discovered my vocation. Transform simple wood into something beautiful, useful, that will last generations. Each hammer blow, each precise cut was a lesson of patience and humility. Over time, and thanks to years of effort, I opened my own workshop in Madrid. I didn't get rich, but I managed to live on my honest work. It was there that clearly appeared in my life. I remember the first day he crossed the door of my workshop. I was looking for a shelf, but when I looked at me with those green eyes, I understood that I was looking for something else, although neither of them knew it yet. We talked about wood, colors, design, and I was fascinated with his way of listening, to smile, really interested. Little by little, our relationship grew. Clara never reproached me not to have money. On the contrary, she told me that I admired my effort, my honesty, my ability to get up early every day to work. With her, I felt that, for the first time in my life, someone really saw me, not because of what I had, but for what was. But his family never shared that vision. From the first day, they treated me like an intruder. They concealed with smiles, but behind each gesture there was a judgment. What does this man do with our daughter? They seemed to think. They invited me to meetings, dinners, but just to remind me how different I was to them. And although Clara was always by my side, defending our love, I felt that every encounter with her family was a silent battle, where my dignity was questioned again and again. That of that dinner was not an accident. Now I see it clearly. It was the beginning of a carefully designed plan to destroy me, to separate myself as clear, to make me feel that I did not belong to his world. But what I did not know then is that this humiliation was just the first chapter of a nightmare that would test everything I was, everything I loved. The week following the humiliating junction of commitment, Clara insisted that I would not worry, that her mother's words mean nothing. But I felt how those phrases were still nailed to my skin as splinters impossible to get. I tried to concentrate on the workshop, in the backward orders, in the furniture I had to deliver. But every time I closed my eyes, he heard the sarcastic laughter of my mother-in-law and the murmur of the guests. And then the first true betrayal came. One afternoon, Clara called me in a trembling voice. Alejandro, my brother Javier was talking to my father. They have said that you use bad quality wood, that you cheat your customers, that you have even falsified invoices to collect more. I was paralyzed. How could they invent such a barbarity? My name, my honor, my trade, everything I had built with my hands was being trampled. That's a lie, Clear. I exclaimed with my heart in my throat. I would never do anything like that. You know it. She believed me, of course. His eyes were full of anger, but not against me, but against them. I know, Alejandro. But they have told him in front of the whole family. They have said that you are not to trust, that my future with you is uncertain. I imagine the scene. Javier, elegant, with his expensive suit and his glass of wine in my hand, smiling while sinking me with poisonous words, and the others nodding, enjoying seeing me reduced to nothing. I felt that the blood boiled in my veins. The next day, when I brought an order finished to one of my customers, I noticed something strange. The man received me coldly. He barely looked me in the eye. I heard things. He said in a dry voice, "I hope it is not true what they tell about you." That was the moment I understood the magnitude of the lie. It was not just a desktop comment. It was a calculated attack, a maneuver to destroy my reputation in the neighborhood, in the circle of my clients, throughout my world. That night, I couldn't sleep. Rabies devoured me inside. How to defend myself from an enemy who used words instead of weapons. How to demonstrate my innocence when suspicion had already sown. Clara hugged me in bed and whispered, "Confia in me, Alejandro. I know who you are. They are not going to separate us." But within me, I had started a storm. It was not just humiliation. It was a certainty that there was an open war, and I still didn't know how much Clara's family was willing to arrive to destroy me. The following weeks were silent hell. Every time he coincided with Javier, with Clara's mother, or even her father, she felt that look of superiority, as if they were constantly reminding me that she did not belong to her world. But the worst was to come. One afternoon, while helping Clara to order some papers in her apartment, I discovered something that froze my blood. Among the folders, I found a signed document, a financial commitment contract between his father and Javier, where they mention a plan to protect the family goods from the wrong hands. My hands were shaking. Clara looked at me strangely. "What's happening?" I showed it. She read, frowned, and said, This can't be. They are planning to leave me out of inheritance if I continue with you." It was evident. They not only wanted to separate us, they wanted to punish us, isolate her, make her choose between her family and me. But the cruelest came days later, when I received an anonymous letter in my workshop. Inside, there were photographs of mine entering a bar in the neighborhood, greeting an old childhood friend. And next to the photos, a handwritten message. "What will clear when you discover who you really are?" I was frozen. That was harassment, manipulation, a furry attack. Clara, when he saw it, broke the photos in 1,000 pieces. "This is a trap, Alejandro. They are trying to doubt you." I hugged her strongly, grateful for her loyalty. But inside me, anger and fear grew. It was no longer just a matter of pride. They were invading my life, following each of my steps, trying to poison even the purest we had. That same night, while walking to the dark streets of Madrid, I swore something. If they wanted war, they would have it. I wasn't going to let them destroy me without fighting. But I still didn't know that the next play they prepared was much more cruel, more public, more humiliating than everything I had lived until then. The day of our official commitment, Clara and I had prepared everything with enthusiasm. We rent a small living room in the center of Madrid, decorated with white flowers and warm lights. There was soft music, Rioja wine, and tables full of tapas. For me, it was a sacred day. I was going to announce to all that Clara and I would unite our lives forever. My friends from the workshop arrived, some neighbors, childhood companions. Also, of course, Clara's family, with her impeccable costumes and her false smiles. I tried to ignore their eyes, to concentrate on Clara's happiness, which shone with simple but elegant navy dress. The symbolic ceremony began well. I said a few words of love. I told how I had met Clara and how she had changed my life. People applauded, some got excited. But then the unthinkable happened. When Clara's mother's turn came to talk, she got up slowly with the cup in her hand, and instead of congratulating, she threw a brutal attack. "Friends, today we should celebrate, but I think everyone deserves to know the truth about the man who intends to marry my daughter." A murmur toward the room. I felt that the ground opened under my feet. The woman took out bent rolls out of her bag and stirred them in the air. Here I have evidence that Alejandro has been indebted for years, that his workshop barely stands, and that if my daughter marries him, he will drag her to ruin. Attendees began to look at each other, bewildered. I could barely breathe. She continued, relentless. Do you really want my daughter to get a man who can't guarantee a future? Some whispered, others were uncomfortable. My friends looked at me disbelief, but the worst was a feeling of betrayal. Those documents, although manipulated, had details of my real accounting. How had he achieved them? I tried to answer, to defend myself. Those roles don't show the whole truth. My workshop has had difficulties, yes, but I have never stopped working. I have never cheated anyone. But my voice broke, my throat was dry. The mother, in law, smiled, savoring victory. Javier, Clara's brother, applauded with irony, and I was silent. In front of everyone, naked of honor, Clara, without hesitation, took the microphone and shouted, "Enough! I will not allow Alejandro to destroy everyone. I love him, and I will be by his side even if he stays empty." His voice echoed in the room as a thunder. There was a sepulchral silence. Some applauded shyly. Others retired uncomfortable. But the damage was done. My name had been stained in public, my trampled dignity. That night, I locked myself in the workshop. I spent hours looking at the tools, my callous hands, my reflection in a broken glass. I thought about how unfair it was, how they could hate me so much without even giving me a chance. I didn't know it yet, but the darkness of that day would also be the beginning of my awakening. Because when one plays background, all that remains is to start climbing towards the truth. And the truth I was about to reveal, days after that public humiliation, I received an unexpected visit in the workshop. It was Carmen, one of Clara's family trusted employees. An older woman, tan face and honest look. He closed the door behind him and told me quietly, "Alejandro, I need to talk to you." I looked at her surprised. It was not common for someone from that circle to approach me. She breathed deep and continued, "I can't endure more what they're doing. I have seen things, and I know you're not the man they paint." He showed me an envelope manila. Inside, there were copies of emails between Javier and his mother, where they clearly spoke of manipulating my accounts, filtering private information, of inventing rumors to protect clear from me. They even mentioned paying an accountant to falsify documents and present them as evidence. My hands trembled while reading. Rabies tore me as liquid fire. There was the evidence that everything had been a conspiracy. "Why do you help me?" I asked with a broken voice. She looked at me sadly. Upon leaving the court, Clara hugged me with tears in my eyes. "You resisted Alejandro, and now everyone knows." That same night, the news began to run in social circles. Javier and his mother had been unmasked. What had begun as a rumor against me became a scandal against them. Clara's partners withdrew their confidence in family businesses, and the reputation of the perfect relatives began to collapse. I had recovered my name, but even more, I had seen the masks of those who had tortured me fall. However, there was still one last step: close this wound forever. Over time, everything was accommodating. The judge completely dismissed the complaint against me and opened an investigation for falsification and defamation that shone directly to Javier and his mother. They, who wanted to see me ruined, now face social contempt and even possible legal consequences. My workshop, although shattered, got up again thanks to the support of friends, faithful customers, and, above all, Clear. She was by my side at every step, helping me clean, rebuild, start over. His love was my greatest victory, the proof that no lie or betrayal could break us. I remember a sunset, weeks after all. We were at the workshop door, looking how the sun had behind the buildings of Madrid, staining the orange and purple sky. Clara took me by the hand and told me, "Are you? We survived, and now we are stronger than ever." I looked at her with my heart full of gratitude. You were my light, Clear. If it hadn't been for you, I would have lost myself in the dark. She smiled, stroking my cheek. No, you always had the strength inside you. I was just reminding you. At that time, I understood that all the pain, all the humiliation, all the anger had a purpose. They wanted to destroy me, but instead, they had transformed me. He was no longer just a humble carpenter. He was a man who had defended his dignity until the end, who had faced giants and won. Today, when I look back, I don't feel hate. I feel relief. Because I discovered the truth, and because life taught me that it doesn't matter how powerful the lie is. Sooner or later, the truth always finds its path. And so, with Clara by my side, I decided to move on, build not only furniture, but a solid future full of love and respect. I no longer look for anyone's approval, because I learned at the blow of betrayals that true victory is not that others accept you, but never betray yourself.